Thank you. Mr. Wood, you may call your next witness.
State calls David Stubbs.
Detective Stubbs, if you'll stand here in front of the plexiglass, raise your right arm and face the clerk.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give in this cause now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Detective Stubbs, you can have a seat right here at the witness stand. Once you enter this cubicle, we'll allow you to remove your mask. Thank you. If you'll pull that microphone down a little bit and aim it up towards your chin, we're keeping a record. Mr. Wood, you may inquire when you're ready.
Thank you. Detective, can you state your name and spell it for the record?
David Stubbs, last name S-T-U-B-B-S.
Thank you. What is your occupation?
I am a police detective sergeant with the detective division for the Rexburg Police Department.
How many years have you been a detective?
Detective since the year 2000.
And how long have you been a police officer? Or how long have you worked for the Rexburg Police?
Approximately 25 years.
And are you post-certified?
Correct.
All right. Do you hold any certificates of training in electronic forensics?
I do. I'm certified as a operator and analyst in the Celebrite systems. Also, I have certificates in access data systems. I do have training in multiple other data systems as well.
Okay. Are you a part of the Idaho Crimes Against Children unit?
I am part of the State of Idaho Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, yes.
Thank you. How did you become involved in the investigation regarding the search for J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan?
I first became involved with Detective Hermosillo in reference to locating a vehicle that was in interest to Arizona police. Later, I became involved after a complaint was put in for a welfare check on juvenile J.J. Vallow.
Okay. Have you ever met the defendant, Chad Daybell?
I have.
Okay. Where did you meet him?
I met him when we issued the search warrant for his property in his kitchen.
Okay. Have you ever met the defendant, Lori Vallow?
I have.
Judge, could I have some foundation on the date, time, and place? They gave us the place, but the date and time would be helpful.
I'll lay that foundation. What date? You referenced the meeting defendant Daybell. What date did you meet him?
I don't recall the exact date. It was the date of the search warrant service.
Which search warrant are you referring to?
The search warrant where we searched the property, the Daybell property.
Right. Does June 9 sound like it might be that
June
day?
9th would be correct.
Of 2020. And what time of the day did you meet him?
We knocked on the door and entered the residence around 7 a.m.
Okay. Have you met the defendant, Lori Vallow?
I have.
Do you know the approximate date of when you met Lori Vallow?
That would have been November 26th, 2019.
Do you know approximately what time of day you met her?
It was in the AM.
Where did you meet her?
565 Pioneer Road, apartment number 175.
Was anyone else with you when you met her?
Yes, I was accompanied by Lieutenant Ron Ball and later was joined by Sergeant Kellen Wetton.
Okay. And what was the purpose of you meeting her that day?
We were trying to perform a welfare check of the welfare of J.J. Vallow.
Okay. Were you wearing a body camera that day?
I was.
Okay. And did your body camera record your meeting with Lori Vallow?
Yes, it did.
How many times did you speak with Lori Vallow that day?
2 different occasions that morning.
And generally speaking, what did you ask her?
Our focus was to inquire on the welfare or the location of J.J. Vallow and make sure he was okay.
Your Honor, we'd ask that the witness, that states Exhibit 14, be shown to the defense and then handed to the witness.
The bailiff will hand Exhibit 14 to the defense. The bailiff has handed Exhibit 14 to the defendant, or the witness.
Detective, do you recognize State's Exhibit 14?
I do.
Have you, what is it?
It is the recordings from my body camera. There's 2 different recordings on this from the 26th of November 2019.
Okay. And have you reviewed the contents on that disc?
I have.
Are they true? Are the contents of that disc a true and accurate representation of what you saw that day?
They are.
And is it a true and accurate representation of, to the best of your knowledge, of what your body cam recorded?
Yes.
Your Honor, the state would ask that State's Exhibit 14 be entered into evidence.
Mr. Pryor,
If I may inquire in aid of objection,
you may.
can you give me an idea, officer, as to when you reviewed that for its accuracy on a date and time?
Can you speak a little louder?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Will you
Can
pull that
tell me
microphone
What date
clo-
and time did you review that to ensure that there was an accurate copy of what transpired on your interview with Ms. Vallow?
The last time I reviewed this was this morning.
Okay, all right. No further questions, Judge. Thank you.
All right. Any objection to the admission of Exhibit 14, Mr.
No
Pryor?
objection, Judge. Thank you.
Exhibit 14 will be admitted.
Your Honor, we'd ask that this be placed into the DVD player.
You wish to publish it right now?
Yes, we wish that the state moves to publish it, Your Honor.
We'll have the bailiff or whoever's in charge of IT put that into the player. I'll remind the media that pursuant to my earlier ruling, I'm going to prohibit the photographs or the videotaping of the publishing of this video here in court.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may. Please don your mask. Mr. Wood, do you need a brief recess so you can troubleshoot the technology here?
We may need to. We came in to test this the other day and it worked just fine, so we might need just a second, Your Honor.
We'll be in recess for a moment.
Judge, can Mr. Daybell, may Mr. Daybell and I be excused to go in the hall to discuss some matters?
That's fine.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Back on the record, continuing with the direct examination of Lieutenant Ball. Is that correct? No, excuse me, it's
Stubbs.
Stubbs. I apologize. Detective Stubbs. Mr. Wood, have you worked out your technology issues there?
Yes, we want to thank Josh, the IT guy, for taking care of that for us.
He's very competent. You may proceed when you're ready.
Thank you. Detective, I'm gonna start playing this and then pause it and have you tell us what's going on when you recognize what it is.
This is my body cam footage as myself and Lieutenant Ball approach the apartment number 175 the first time on the 26th.
Okay.
Her car's out there too. In the back, it's blue. Blue Subaru.
Hi, you Lori. Lori, I'm Lieutenant Ball, Police Department. How are you? You got a minute? You alone, or that help? Or?
My brother's here.
Okay. This is Detective Stubbs.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
So, we're here.
Wow, this is a big mess. I just talked to the guy on the phone.
And what did he ask you?
He was just saying that he wanted to do a well check on JJ.
So, JJ would be where?
He's in Arizona.
Who's he with in Arizona?
He's with one of my friends in Arizona.
Oh.
Hi.
Oh,
Hey.
you got a notepad?
No? Want me to get one?
No. Come here. You mind if he comes in?
No, come on.
So,
Thank you.
Sorry.
who's the friend he's with?
My friend Melanie. Her son
Melanie.
has autism. Her name's Melanie Gibb. I gave him all the information on the phone.
Okay, so he can call him?
Yeah.
Or-
Discord.
Yeah. What is all this?
We're a little
What is
concerned
Why?
because, well, the officers who were here earlier
Yeah.
were checking and they got a bad vibe that like something was going on here because nobody knew anything about a child. They weren't talking.
It's because a
What's
lot of
going
stuff
on?
has gone on. If you want to know, it's a lot of stuff. So
Well, that's why we're concerned, because it just was kind of weird.
it is very weird. I've had to move around a lot. One of my brothers is trying to kill me. Not the brother that lives here, obviously. He's kind of my protector. My other brother that was in with my husband, who was trying to kill me for my $2 million life insurance policy. No way.
Now,
So a lot of stuff has gone on in this last year. It's been a horrible year for us. I've had to move around. And so I was going to move back to Arizona, put my son back in the school there because I tried to put him in school here, public school at Kennedy.
okay.
He went for 2 months. We tried it, but he had such a hard time. Now, the person who called is my sister-in-law, but she's his natural grandmother. He's adopted by us. Okay, so her son, who is a drug addict,
Okay.
had a baby with a girl who's a drug addict, and they took him from, CPS took him,
Okay.
gave him to the grandmother. She came and got him, and then she wanted us to adopt him, which we did. And we loved
By
him and taken
us,
care.
who we
My
calling?
husband and I, who died earlier this year.
Okay.
He passed away. Since he
Sorry to hear
passed
that.
away, she's been trying to fight me for him and being really horrible to me and that kind of stuff.
The,
She's kind of the paternal friend.
okay, thank
Does
you.
that make sense?
That's
I'm
what I
sorry.
needed. The paternal grandmother.
He has autism and ADHD. He doesn't really talk to people. Like he's very special needs. So I had him in a special needs school there. She was trying to, so what happened was my husband, who we were married for 15 years and had raised all these 5 kids together, switched his life insurance policy to her, right?
To
his sister,
okay.
who got $1 million when he died, and we got nothing. For me to raise JJ, and all the kids got nothing, and everybody got nothing. She got $1 million. So I knew she was going to try to sue me for him, or
JJ?
yeah, because she now has this $1 million, so she can hire people to help him, and I have nothing.
But you have
Nothing,
legal
but-
custody.
He's my son. I adopted him when
Right.
he was 2 years. We had him from the time he was 8 months old till 2 years old. So she does nothing that wants to cause me trouble. So I don't tell people the truth about where we are and what we're doing because of those reasons. So I look like a suspect, but I am not a good person. I've raised all of my kids. I've done everything that I'm supposed to do in life, but everyone is causing me trouble right now. So
We don't want to cause a lot of trouble. How long have you been here?
We only been here since September.
Okay.
We moved up here in September. My daughter to go to BYUI.
Your daughter goes to BYU?
Yeah.
Does she live here?
Mm-hmm. So it's been a nightmare. But I'm going to go back to Arizona so I can put him back in the special needs school. He couldn't do the school here. It was too hard for him. He would scream and cry, take him to school. The principal would have to come out, try to drag him out of the car. Like, it's too hard. But I just don't tell people where I am. I don't tell her where I am ever.
Okay.
And she doesn't have any legal rights to anything. Like, she's been horrible to me since my husband died.
My understanding, she never called to try to get the child, hey, I'm interested in the child back, but that.
I know, but she sends me these emails with like the dates and like she's putting up court stuff, like she's documenting. I haven't heard from him in all this time. And so I've told her that he's fine, but.
See, and we hadn't heard any of that as far as.
I'm just saying she's doing this as part of that,
Yeah.
is my understanding.
And our only concern in this whole thing
Is that he's fine.
is the child.
I got it.
And so that's where we're at on the, and then
So
we
I
were just a
called
little
her.
weirded out when, and I understand now that we've heard your side of the story.
It's awful. I feel like I'm being tracked all the time. I'm like, why are police coming to my door? What
They
did I do?
They said they were out visiting with two guys, and I'm assuming one's your brother.
Who was this? Yeah.
Who was the other one? The other guy they were visiting with. There were two.
Visiting.
Well, we had two detectives over here trying to.
Looking for you a little while ago.
Oh, because I was at the store.
And they ran into probably one of your brothers.
My brother and his friend, probably.
Oh, who's
They've been
that?
moving. Chad.
Chad from around here?
Mm-hmm.
What's his last name? Yeah, okay. All right.
So it's just a mess. Just constantly causing me trouble.
Chad the Daybell?
Mm-hmm. He's an author.
Doesn't he live like out in the? Isn't that the Chad Daybell that? Didn't his wife pass away recently? Is that him?
I don't know.
I bet it is. Chad Daybell. Yeah.
But it sounds familiar as an author.
I think I know one of his. Has he got a couple of daughters? Is that
He has lots of kids.
okay. I'll bet it's safe. All right. Well, do you need anything else? Sorry to bother you.
Thank you.
Okay.
We don't mean to be a problem.
I'm sorry
We just-
that people are constantly knocking on my door looking for me, and I just don't want to be found. So.
Have you had problems? Because I think we've only had.
Well, the reason I'm moving is because the brother that was going to kill me, that we found emails and texts with my husband at the time, came showing up here. So he found out where I was, and he was knocking on my door.
No, this was your brother?
One of my brothers.
He showed up here and was knocking on your door.
He lives in Kansas.
And you said something about you were getting threatening emails?
Well, no. Just after my husband passed, I found emails and texts between them that they were planning all this stuff to get rid of me.
Do we need to worry about him coming over?
Well, that's when I'm moving back. I'm moving, and I'm not going to be in a place. I'm going to live with my friend, Melanie. Don't tell her.
Oh, you can call. I'm gonna take care of it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, just a nightmare. I mean, I canceled the insurance policy since my husband passed, so there's no money if they can. And what are they going to do with JJ and Tyler? Like, what do people think?
Okay.
So,
Well, if you have a problem, shows back up, feel free to call us. We'll come and run him off or something. Okay? All right.
Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll get out of here. Sorry to bother you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya. Not.
Detective Stubbs, did you return to that same apartment that day?
Yes. When Detective Hermosillo and Detective Hope could not contact Melanie Gibb a few minutes later from this encounter, we went back to her door to inquire about how we could get a hold of Melanie Gibb.
And is that what is on the second film file here?
That is
Video file?
correct. So they want us to ask Lori if she would. So we can just
Melanie is the friend.
Wasn't Melanie the one living up here? Supposed to be her daughter, Lori's daughter?
No, this was the friend that she's going back down to live with, she said.
Right. She's got a daughter named Melanie.
Let's just see if she will call and have Melanie get a hold of Hope and just do a verification. Because apparently she's not answering the phone down there.
Lori? Hi, Lori. Sorry to bother you again. We're having
Melanie,
getting a hold of your friend down there, Melanie.
Well, they were going to Frozen 2 today, so they may be at the movies.
could you get a hold of her at some point and say, can you please call back the officer that's been trying to call you?
Okay, sure.
Because
Yeah, because I think they are at the movies right now.
okay, that he's been trying to call her or other officer. She's not answering.
Okay.
But if they're at the movie, that's
Probably at Frozen 2 right now.
yeah.
Because that's the one thing he wanted to do.
I'm frozen too.
Yeah,
Frozen 2 is so
yeah.
cold here.
So-
I don't know if I can handle a whole winter here. That's probably why.
Yeah. So if she'll just return his call, that'd be great.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks. Yes, sir.
Detective Stubbs, I asked you earlier about your getting certifications regarding computer and cell phone forensics. Have you been involved in any analysis of cell phone records related to this case?
I have.
Okay. Are you familiar with location records which can be found on electronic devices?
I am.
Can you tell the court generally, explain generally about location records that can be found on electronic devices?
So it all will depend on the device itself, who the provider is that is tracking location, web searches, number of different apps will track your what you're doing.
Okay. And do you know how those records are generated?
Well, it just depends on the provider, what kind of stuff that they are searching for, what their target, if you will, their target market is. It can be, what you searched for, so they can better plan for that stuff, or GPS data, latitude, longitude, dates and times that you do things.
Okay. Have you used location information from a cellular device successfully in any other cases?
I have.
Okay. Have you analyzed any location records of electronic devices as part of your investigation in this case?
Yes, I have.
Detective, are you familiar with Alex Cox?
I am familiar with him in this case, yes.
Okay. And do you know who he is?
I've never met him, but I know he is the brother to Lori Daybell and the brother-in-law to the defendant, Chad Daybell.
Okay. Do you know where Mr. Cox is now?
I have been told that Mr. Cox died in
Judge,
December
I'm gonna object.
2019.
Mr. Pryor,
Hearsay.
Mr. Wood, there's been an objection as to hearsay.
I'll rephrase the question.
Okay,
Through your investigation, do you know of the death of Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Okay. Through your pursuant to your investigation, why were you interested in Alex Cox's Google data?
The reason we were interested was we knew Alex lived in an apartment very close to Lori. We also knew because of the relationship between Lori and Chad being, brother-in-law and sister, that Alex may have some information onto where the location of the children may be.
And were you able to obtain Alex Cox's Google location data?
Yes, we were.
How did you do that?
We issued a search warrant. We had information of many known phone numbers, email addresses for the individuals in this case. We obtained a search warrant that we issued to Google and received a return from them with results.
Okay. And you may have already answered this. Did the warrant ask for just Alex Cox's data or multiple users?
No, we were requesting multiple users from the information we had obtained.
Okay. When you received a return on that warrant, was that return accompanied by a certificate of authenticity?
Yes, it was.
Your Honor, the state would ask for what's been marked as State's Exhibit 15 to be shown to the defense and then handed to the witness.
Exhibit 15 will be shown to Mr. Pryor. Exhibit 15 is now being shown to the witness.
Detective, do you recognize that document?
I do.
What is it?
It's a certificate of authenticity that was accompanied the results of the search warrant from Google.
And have you reviewed that document before?
I have reviewed this document, yes.
And are you familiar with its contents?
I am.
Detective, is that document signed under penalty of perjury?
Yes, it was.
By whom?
The Andrew Jordan.
Okay. Does that certificate of authenticity state that the record was made from information transmitted by someone with personal knowledge?
Yes, in paragraph 1, it states that.
Does that certificate of authenticity state that the record was kept in the course of regular conducted activity of Google?
In paragraph 5, it states that as well.
And does the certificate of authenticity state that the record was that making the record was a regular practice of Google?
Also in paragraph 5, it states that, yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I would ask that that certificate, State's Exhibit 15, be entered into evidence.
No objection, Judge.
Exhibit 15 will be admitted.
Your Honor, I'd ask that what's been marked at State's Exhibit 16 be shown to the defense and then handed to the witness.
Exhibit 16 is being handed to the witness.
Detective, do you recognize that document?
I do.
Have you seen it before?
I have.
And have you reviewed it?
I have reviewed this document,
And are you
yes.
familiar with its contents?
I'm sorry?
Are you familiar with its contents?
I am.
Detective, when you sent your search warrant for the accounts from Google that you talked about, did the accounts provided by Google include Google subscriber information?
Yes, that is what this document is in reference to.
Okay. And is this document a true and accurate representation of the subscriber information you received for one of those Google documents?
Yes, this is one that Google sent us for one of those accounts, yes.
Your Honor, the state would ask that State's Exhibit 16 be entered into evidence.
No objection, Judge.
Exhibit 16 will be admitted.
Detective, can you look at the top of the first page of Exhibit 16?
Okay.
And do you see where it says Google subscriber information?
I do.
Is there a name identified with that subscriber information?
The name of Alex Cox.
Is there an email associated with that subscriber information?
There is, the email is homerjmaximus@gmail.com.
Is there any other data on that subscriber information page?
There is a subscriber phone number, which we had previously identified as belonging to Alex Cox.
Okay.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Be sure to wait to completely finish the question before you answer.
Detective, when you received the return on that search warrant, what was the size of that document in terms of pages if it were to be printed out?
Oh, the size of this entire document was thousands of pages.
Okay. We've discussed Alex Cox's Google location data. If that were to be printed out, do you know approximately how many pages it would be?
So just the location data for this particular account, if you were to print it out, would have been over 28,000 pages.
Okay. And if you were to open that data up on a computer, what format does it come in?
If you opened it up, you would see it in what would be like an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay. And what kind of information is located on that spreadsheet in general for Google location data?
So for Google, it would be the date timestamps. It would be the latitude and longitude of the said, if you will, pings or pins that were placed. It would have a radius of error that Google has interpreted. It would have what they know as the device being used to access the Google system. And then there's another number that is really associated with Google and whatever inner workings they have that would have to be Google that explains it.
Okay. Due to the large size of the data, I think you said it was over 28,000 pages of user location data, correct?
correct?
Have you prepared any summaries of data you found in that document?
I have prepared some, yes, some documents.
Can you tell us about those documents?
So what I did was I took an aerial photograph, and that I took specific dates and times of interest and just pinpointed on the map using GPS latitude, longitude, time, date stamps to place pins on a map to show location.
Okay. And how many summaries have you prepared?
I've prepared 2 at this time.
Okay. And were those summaries prepared with data you verified from Alex Cox's Homer J. Maximus account?
Yes,
And that is the same data that you received included with that certificate of authenticity
that is correct.
we introduced earlier. Okay. Your Honor, the state would ask for State's Exhibit, what's been marked as State's Exhibit 17, to be shown to the defense and then handed to the witness.
Do you want to hand it to the witness or put it on the easel, Mr. Wood?
We can put it on the easel.
We'll just put it over the top of the previous exhibit.
Oh,
Would you like that handed directly to the witness?
Your Honor, I actually would like to have the, before I enter that into evidence. Well, yeah, before I ask for that, I'd ask for the State's Exhibit 17 to be entered into evidence.
Okay. Mr. Pryor, any objection to that?
I think a little more foundation would be necessary.
That's fine.
Hold up here, Madam Bailiff. Sounds like Mr. Wood is going to lay some more foundation. Would you like that exhibit handed to the witness?
Your Honor, yes, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Detective, do you recognize State's Exhibit 17?
I do. I prepared this.
Okay. What data did you use to prepare that with?
The location data that I had obtained from the Google account, Homer J. Maximus.
Okay. And was that data verified with the Homer J. Maximus account?
As far as verified, that I have checked and double checked my locations from the map overview to the GPS or latitude, longitude given by Google.
Okay. And how did you prepare that?
Well, there's a number of ways you can prepare it. This particular aerial photograph, we just, you can do this using Google Earth, Google Maps, Ping Maps, or Bing Maps, Microsoft, anyone. If you enter a location with the GPS coordinates, doesn't matter, from my experience, anyone that I've used will always come up with the same waypoints.
Okay. Your Honor, this time I'd ask the State's Exhibit 17 be entered into evidence. And I'd add that that's pursuant to Idaho Rule of Evidence 1006, which allows for summaries to be prepared of voluminous data.
Mr. Pryor?
Judge, I don't have a problem with how he's applying 501. The difficulty is he has a demonstrative exhibit that he's trying to mark without any foundation of what's on that in terms of the picture and what it represents. So there's still a foundation problem here.
State's more than happy to lay that foundation, Your Honor.
I'd like that laid out so that there's a clear record of exactly what that picture that is in Officer Stubbs' hands represent. So I need some more foundation in that regard, Judge.
All right,
Detective
Mr. Woods,
Stubbs,
please do so.
the base layer of that summary document you have, what does it purport to be?
This overhead view is of the property of 202 East, 1900 North, the Chad Daybell property.
Okay. And have you been at that property?
I have been at this property, yes.
And are you familiar with the layout of the property and landmarks on that property?
I am.
Okay. And is that base layer, that image, is that a true and accurate representation, to your knowledge, of what that property looks like?
It is.
Okay. And then what layers have you added to that summary?
So besides the photograph itself, I have added a, if you will, type of table of contents at the bottom where I can explain the other things that I put on here, which would be red triangles that are specified by a number next to them that correlate with the latitude and longitude that I have placed on this map. Other than those things, that is the only thing I've added to this photograph.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, the state would move
There
forward.
won't be an objection this time, Judge.
Exhibit 17 will be admitted.
Your Honor, before 17 is published, the state would ask that what's been marked as State's Exhibit 18 would be shown to the defense and then handed to the witness.
Exhibit 18 will be handed to the witness.
Detective, do you recognize State's Exhibit 18?
I do?
Is it one of the summaries that you testified to earlier?
Yes, this is a second summary.
Did you prepare that summary with data you verified came from Alex Cox's Homer J. Maximus Google account?
Yes, I did.
Okay. What is the base layer of that image purport to be?
The base layer of this is the apartment complex at 565 Pioneer Road, where both Lori Vallow, Daybell, and Alex Cox resided.
Judge, and I want to be clear that he's referring to Lori Vallow and Alex Cox, and he did use the Daybell last name, but I want to make it clear that he's in no way implying that Chad Daybell was part of that. Is that correct? Living in that residence?
As living here?
As living in that residence that's in your hand right now.
That's correct.
Just so we have a clear record, Judge, because the Daybell name was used.
The record will so reflect.
How did you prepare that summary?
Again, this was an aerial photograph taken. There's been a couple layers added to this. This image I received from our GIS department, which is the department of the city who maps, if you will, all of the city. Also their, if you will, the boundaries of residents and so forth and so on with addresses and so forth. So the second layer shows these apartments and the apartment numbers associated with the individual apartments. Again, my table of contents at the bottom right, that I received that data off of the Google location services I had received from Google with the Homer J. Maximus account.
Okay. Your Honor, the state would ask that State's Exhibit 18 be entered into evidence.
Judge, I would ask if there's an identifying factor telling me the date of that summary, because there's been no representation of the exact date that that summary represents, so I would like that from the witness.
There's been an objection as to foundation with the summary. Mr. Wood, do you wish to lay that objection?
Detective, what are the dates associated with the data you entered onto that image?
The reference numbers, is that what we're referring to? The GPS coordinates I placed on here?
Yes.
They are September 9th, 3 of those on September 9th. Also, September 14th and September 6th are all dates that I've associated on this map.
Okay. Your Honor, this time we'd ask that State's Exhibit 18 be entered into evidence.
Judge, just clarification in lieu of objection, if I may.
Mr. Pryor, if you'll speak up just a little bit, I'm having
Sorry,
difficulty.
just clarification and if I can inquire in aid of objection, Judge, just very briefly.
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer, September 9th, you said there are 3 readings at that particular point. Is that correct?
I have mapped 3 different,
Right.
yes.
And those represent just Alex Cox. Is that correct?
Not Alex Cox, but the device belonging to Alex Cox.
Okay. And then on the 14th of September, it's the device belonging to Alex Cox as well. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then on the 6th of September, it's the device belonging to Alex Cox. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you already excuse me. You already anticipated my question is that's merely just a device that in no way can establish whether or not the person is present at the time of those locations. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Nothing else, Judge. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Pryor, I feel like your questions were cross-examination questions. Any objection to the admission of Exhibit 18?
No, Judge.
Exhibit 18 will be admitted.
Thank you. Your Honor, I'd ask that Exhibit 18 be published and placed on the easel.
Would you like that placed over the previous exhibit that's on the easel, Mr. Wood?
Yes, please. Or
Do you want,
whatever's easiest for court personnel.
do you want both of those summaries to be visible as you're questioning the witness?
One at a time, Your Honor. We'll start with 18, then go back to 17.
Okay, why don't we take a brief recess right now? We're going to crank the air conditioner in this courtroom for just a moment, see if we can cool it down by 10 or 50 degrees. And we'll go back on the record here in 15 minutes. It's 2:30, so why don't we plan on going back on the record at about 10 minutes to 3 o'clock. We'll be back on the record. Took a brief recess to cool it down in here. We were in the middle of direct examination of Detective Stubbs. And Mr. Wood, I think you had just admitted 17 and 18 into evidence. It looks like you have 18 on the easel right now. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed with your direct examination.
Your Honor, I wonder if I could adjust that so that I can see the easel as well.
That's fine. Do you need to scoot it back towards the wall?
I think so. Counsel, please.
Yes, thank you.
Judge, can you see?
I can.
Your Honor, due to the nature of what Detective Stubbs is going to be testifying to, we'd ask that he be able to stand next to the easel and put on a mask.
That's fine. Mr. Wood, why don't you don yours while he does that? There's a laser pointer as well, Mr. Wood. I don't know if you've explained that to Detective Stubbs. Okay. Hold up here. Do we, if he's going to be touching the exhibit, why don't we put some gloves on the witness here if there's going to be anybody else that's touching it? There's some right here. fine.
All right, Detective, now that Exhibit 18 has been published, can you, and since we took a break, can you just briefly summarize again what Exhibit 18 is and how you prepared it?
So this was an aerial photograph taking of this apartment complex. April 2000 is when the photograph was taken. What we did was we took, we made this table of contents here, which I've numbered 1, 2, 3, 8, and 9. Those numbers correlate with the red triangles that I have placed on this map in 2 different locations and represent from the Google documents the location services for the Homer J. Maximus account. These latitude and longitudes correlate with these triangles. Now, also accompanied on this map, along with those records from the Excel spreadsheet, as I mentioned, 28,000 plus pages. The number here, in reference number, on the far left column of that Excel spreadsheet is the quick reference 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on down the page. This number correlates with that line item, if you will. Next are the coordinates that Google provided for us. Next to that is the date and time that these locations were logged through Google on that account. And the very last line over here is margin or radius of error from these findings from Google.
And are all the margins of error the same?
No. Depending on the one, they range, as you can see here, if you can see, from 4 meters and a couple at 15-meter radius of error.
On Exhibit 18, why did you focus on the coordinates you focused on?
Mainly because of 2 things. These are 2 residents where Alex Cox resided in 107 and that Lori Daybell resided in 175.
Okay. Was there anything significant about the dates?
As far as the dates go, 1, 2, and 3 are dated the 9th of September, 2019, in the early morning hours of that day.
What is the timestamp on, can you point to pin number 3?
Here in the parking lot.
And what is the timestamp on that?
Number 3 is 02:42 hours and 2 seconds.
Okay. And what was the date on that?
That was the September 9th,
Okay.
2019.
And can you point to pin number 2?
Pin number 2 is almost in the same location in the parking lot.
And what is the timestamp on that?
Pin number 2 is 02:42 and 11 seconds.
Okay. And can you point at pin number 1?
Same location with this triangle here.
Okay. And what is the timestamp on that?
That would be 03:37:22.
Okay. What is the margin of error on pin number 3?
Pin number 3 is at 4 meters.
What is the margin of
Judge,
error?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. He said 4 meters or 40?
4.
4, thank you.
What is the margin of error on pin number 2?
4 meters.
And what is the margin of error on pin number 1?
4 meters.
Okay. Now, let's talk really quickly about the timestamp When you receive Google records, are they in mountain time?
No.
How is the time relayed on the Google location data?
So on the Excel spreadsheet, they would be in UTC time.
Okay.
UTC here during that time of year is UTC -6 hours.
Okay, thank you. Can you point at pin number 8? Actually, I'm going to ask you to point to pin number 9 first.
Pin number 9 is over in this area here.
Okay. What is the timestamp on pin number 9?
Pin number 9 would be September 6th, 2019 at 2:56 a.m. and 13 seconds.
Okay, and what's the margin of error or radius of error on that?
15 meters.
Okay. And can you give us the same information on pin number 8?
Pin number 8 is the 14th of September 2019 at 01:21 and 43 seconds in the AM.
And what is the margin or radius of error on pin number 8?
That again is 15 meters.
All right. Your Honor, I'd ask to publish State's Exhibit 17 at this time.
No objection.
Now on the easel is exhibit 17. Is that correct, Mr. Wood?
Yes. And again, just to clarify for the record, due to taking a break, can you just briefly summarize again what State's Exhibit 17 is?
This is an aerial photograph of the Chad Daybell property.
Okay, and where is that located?
202 East 1900 South in Fremont County.
And did you prepare that summary in the same manner as State's Exhibit 18?
Yes, I did.
Okay. How many data points have you plotted on that summary?
4 data points.
Okay. Can you point to data point or location number 5?
Location number 5 is in this area here.
Okay. What is the timestamp on that?
Timestamp of September 9th, 2019 at 9:21 and 36 seconds in the AM.
Okay, what's the margin of error on that?
That would be 6 meters.
Can you point to location number 4?
This area here.
Mm-hmm. What is the timestamp on that?
Timestamp of September 9th, 2019 at 10:57 and 03 seconds in the AM.
And what's the margin of error?
5 meters.
Detective, can you point at location 7 on that summary?
Here.
Yes. What is the timestamp on location 7?
Timestamp of 09:56 and 28 seconds in the AM.
Okay. What's the margin of error on that?
4 meters.
And finally, can you point to location number 6?
Number 6 is in the same area, general area.
And what is the timestamp on that?
9/23/2019 at 10:02:19 hours in the AM.
And what's the margin of error?
3 meters.
Okay. Thank you. Detective, I think you can take your seat again.
Detective, when you've been seated, you can take off your glove and mask if you'd like.
Detective, you testified about the contents of the Homer J. Maximus Google location data. Are there other data points located on the Daybell property in that, in the data that was given to you on your search warrant return?
There are additional data points in the area, yes.
And are there additional data points near or on the near the Lori Vallow apartment at 565 Pioneer Road?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a reason you didn't map out all the data points on the Homer J. Maximus Google location data?
Well, the reason being is because the file is so massive that it would take, I can't even imagine how long it would take to put all the waypoints on a map.
Okay. Say I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Cross-examination, Mr. Pryor.
Thank you, Judge. Initially, when you went out there for the interview of Miss Vallow, and I believe that was in November, is that right?
That is correct.
And the date in November was what, officer?
The 26th?
Okay. Now, the purpose of that initial visit was a welfare check, was it not?
It was.
Okay, so it was a preliminary matter, is that correct?
Yes.
And you're a detective with which law enforcement agency?
The Rexburg Police Department.
And as the Rexburg Police Department, is it your policy that even for preliminary matters, such as a welfare check, you are required to have your body cam on?
It is not a requirement. However, since I've been issued a body camera, I always make it a practice to wear it when I go to talk to people outside the office.
And that is because you want to accurately and correctly reflect what someone says to you. Wouldn't that be the case?
That's right.
And you want to accurately provide a record of what was transpired because people make mistakes, correct?
Yes, people can make mistakes.
And police officers are obviously people as well, and police officers make mistakes when they're in the course of doing an investigation. There are times when they may not recite things exactly the way they are. So a camera is a tool to help you do that. Is that correct?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. I think that's more testimony than it is a question.
Mr. Pryor, what's your question?
The question is that it's a good practice to have a body cam and record a conversation when you're interviewing any witness, correct?
That is my personal feeling for me.
And you're doing that out of experience, correct?
Correct.
Now, there was some previous testimony about Mr. Cox residing in Unit 175. Do you have any information that suggests he was residing in Unit 175?
I don't have that knowledge whether he was or wasn't residing, other than my body cam footage saying that he was there.
Okay. And during the time that you went there on the 26th of November, Mr. Daybell wasn't there, correct?
That day, I never saw for myself Mr. Daybell.
And there was an acknowledgement that her brother was there, though, correct?
That is correct.
And then on the second trip, I don't recall seeing whether there was an acknowledgement that Mr. Cox was there. Was he there again the second time, do you recall?
I do not know.
Okay. All right. But again, you didn't see Mr. Daybell there, correct?
That is correct.
And your belief is that when you went to Unit 175, it was because you believed that was Lori Vallow's residence. Is that right?
That is right.
And your data points seem to suggest that you're looking at Unit 175 and Unit 107.
Correct.
And there's a reason for that, is there not?
Yes.
That's because somebody lives in Unit 107, right?
We believed one of the family members lived in
And who
107.
would that be?
Alex Cox.
And who lives in 175?
Lori Vallow.
Okay. So just so we put this into terms that I can understand, when you're talking about 4 meters, you're talking approximately 12 feet.
Approximately.
And when you're talking about 15 meters, you're talking about 45 feet.
Approximately.
Okay. I am curious, and this is in the way of an explanation. When you're talking UC time -6, give me an example of what UC time -6 is. It looks like the clock says 3:05. So what would be an example of that?
Well, if you will, there's a point where they actually start recording time. And as you go through time zones, you gain or lose whatever an hour from the starting point of, if you will, a time starting.
Okay,
And
so-
then because we're in mountain time,
Right.
at that time of year, you take the general time and you subtract 6 hours from that.
So when you say 242 in pin number 2, in this example, and it's 242, do we go back 6 hours earlier?
No, you would add 6 from UTC time. You minus 6 to
So
get
if
to
I
our
could
time
ask- If
zone.
I could ask you to go back up to the exhibit, would you mind doing that for me?
Mr. Pryor, Exhibit 17 or Exhibit 18?
Well, I'm going to start with 17, then we'll go to 18 after that. Because I think 17 is still up there, is it not, officer? All right, so that one is number,
This is 17.
that's right, I'm sorry, maybe I misspoke. So let's talk with pin number 5. On pin number 5, you said it was on September 9th. Correct. And you put down the time as 9:21 a.m. Is that correct, officer? All right. And then you put down the time of variance or margin of error, I guess is the appropriate term, based on what I've read, and margin of error is 6 meters, right?
Correct.
So is that actually 9:21 a.m. on September 9th, or is there a additional time that needs to be added to that?
It was in our time 9:21.
Okay,
However, when you talk to a carrier of a phone or Google or whoever else, they generally send you this layout in UTC time. So depending on if you're on the East Coast, if you're here, wherever you are, you can do that margin and deduct those hours or add.
so you're the one who came up with the calculation as to what these proximate times are, is that correct?
The only thing I did was minus UTC time minus 6 to get our local time.
Okay, all right. And then again, on number 7, pin number 7, what was the time on that one?
09:56 and 28 seconds in the AM.
And those points that you're talking about reflect a device that was owned by Alex Cox, is that correct?
The Google states belong to Alex Stubbs.
Okay. And on the items that were set on the house, or excuse me, the apartments, those times and those pins were a reflection of a device that was owned by Alex Cox, is that correct?
The same device.
Okay, all right. Thank you, officer. Go ahead, you can return to your seat. Can you tell me what the range of summaries is in this particular case? In other words, the start time for which range you subpoenaed Google and the end time for which range you ended. You're reflecting about 28,000 pages of documents. I'd like to know what the range is, the start range and the stop range.
You know, I would have to actually look at the search warrant again to be sure of the dates we requested.
Well, my recollection is we admitted that, did we not, as exhibit?
Search warrant 2019-86.
Okay. Do you have at least a recollection of what it may be?
From what I remember, and first part of September
Okay.
through December,
Through December?
through when we served the search warrant.
Okay. All right. So we don't know how many times from September through December that those devices were on the Daybell property then, correct?
We don't have a total number at this time, no.
Are you working on that?
There is things being worked on at this time,
Are
yes.
you working on that?
I am working with members of the FBI CAS team to come up with those numbers.
Okay, so in other words, we're going to, at some point in the future, there'll be a complete analysis of every date that this particular device or devices was not only in the apartment, but also on the Daybell property. That'll be forthcoming, I can assume that, correct?
Well, I can't answer for exactly what the CAS team is doing, but they are doing additional analysis on those times and those coordinates.
Okay. And that information has been preserved in the event there needs to be someone else taking a look at that as well, correct?
That is correct.
Did you have an occasion to talk with Mr. Daybell at any time?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Did you have an occasion to talk to Mr. Daybell at any time?
No.
You hesitated. Why is that?
I was trying to remember if I had said stand right over here or whatever while he was in the kitchen. I don't exactly recall.
Okay, so there's no recorded conversation or body cam of Mr. Daybell that you have in your possession. Is that correct?
I did have my body camera on that day as well.
Okay.
Have I reviewed that as of the last little bit? I have not.
Have you provided that to the prosecuting attorney?
I believe he has copies.
All right. Judge, I have nothing else at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wood, and you redirect.
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you, Detective Stubbs. You can be excused from the witness stand.